The welfare queen thinks she's somebody important. Officer Martinez points directly at Dr. Amara Johnson as she walks through the courthouse doors. His finger jabs the air like he's marking target practice. Officer Carter throws his head back, mouth wide open in exaggerated laughter, then makes a mock curtsy toward her. Martinez cups his hands around his mouth. Your Majesty, need help finding the food stamp office? Both officers slap their knees, doubled over in performance-level mockery. Carter wipes fake tears from his eyes and pretends to bow. Dr. Johnson stops. Every muscle in her body could snap these men in half, but instead she simply adjusts her government-issued briefcase. The same hands that have briefed presidents now smooth down her blazer. Her eyes scan their faces with the cold precision of someone who has spent 2 decades cataloging threats to national security. She says nothing. Not yet. Have you ever watched someone dig their own grave with their mouth? Inside the courtroom, Officer Martinez straightens his uniform and walks to the witness stand like he owns the place. His chest puffs out, his shoulders roll back, and that same smirk from the hallway now spreads across his face as he places his hand on the Bible. This is his territory, his version of the truth. State your name for the record, the defense attorney says, adjusting his expensive tie. Officer Daniel Martinez, badge number 4187, 15 years of dedicated service to this community. Martinez makes sure to emphasize dedicated service while looking directly at Dr. Johnson. 15 years of dealing with people who think the rules don't apply to them. The defense attorney nods approvingly. Officer Martinez, please tell the court what happened on the evening of March 15th. Martinez leans into the microphone, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's told this story 100 times before. My partner, Officer Carter, and I were conducting routine patrol duties when we observed a vehicle traveling 15 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. Standard traffic violation. Nothing unusual about it. He pauses, letting his eyes sweep across the mostly white courtroom gallery. Several jurors nod along. This is familiar territory for them, too. So we initiated a traffic stop, standard procedure. The driver pulled over immediately, which was cooperative, I'll give her that. But the moment I approached the vehicle, her whole attitude changed. Martinez shakes his head with practiced disappointment. Suddenly she's arguing, raising her voice, making accusations. What kind of accusations, Officer Martinez? The usual stuff we hear every day. Racial profiling, harassment. She kept saying we had no right to stop her, that we were targeting her because of her race. Classic deflection tactics. Martinez glances at the jury box. Look, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen every excuse in the book. But this lady, she takes it to a whole new level. Officer Carter sits in the gallery, nodding supportively at every word. His presence serves as silent backup to Martinez's testimony, 2 uniforms against 1 woman. How so? The defense attorney prompts. Martinez actually chuckles. She starts pulling out all these official-looking documents. Claims she's some kind of federal agent. Says she works for Homeland Security. He makes air quotes with his fingers. Now, I've seen fake IDs before, but this was elaborate. Professional-looking. Someone put real effort into making these forgeries look authentic. The courtroom murmurs appreciatively. Even the judge raises an eyebrow as if impressed by the lengths some people will go to avoid a simple traffic ticket. She's waving these papers around, demanding to speak to my supervisor, saying she outranks me. Meanwhile, she's getting more and more agitated. At one point, she actually stepped out of her vehicle in what I perceived as an aggressive manner. You felt threatened? Absolutely. When someone claims to have federal authority and starts acting erratically, that's a red flag for officer safety. We're trained to de-escalate, but we're also trained to protect ourselves and the public. Martinez shifts in his chair, playing the part of a professional under pressure. Look, I don't care what color someone is. I don't care if they're rich or poor. The law is the law. And when someone resists a lawful order, when they become combative and start making threats about their supposed connections, well, that's when things escalate. The defense attorney walks closer to the jury. Officer Martinez, in your professional opinion, what was the defendant trying to accomplish with these claims of federal employment? Intimidation. Pure and simple. She thought if she could convince us she was someone important, we'd back down. Let her go without consequence. It's a common tactic among people who think they're above the law. Martinez looks directly at Dr. Johnson again, his stare cold and dismissive. Some people think if they dress nice, talk fancy, and wave around impressive-looking paperwork, they can manipulate law enforcement. But badges don't lie. Training doesn't lie. And 15 years of experience doesn't lie. The prosecutor objects half-heartedly to the editorial commentary, but the damage is done. Martinez has painted Dr. Johnson as a manipulative liar who fabricated federal credentials to escape consequences for her actions. Officer Martinez, the defense attorney continues. During this interaction, did the defendant make any statements that seemed rehearsed or calculated? Oh, absolutely. She had answers for everything. Too many answers, if you know what I mean. Like she'd practiced this routine before. She mentioned specific protocols, used law enforcement terminology, even referenced federal oversight procedures. But here's the thing. Anyone can Google that information nowadays. Anyone can study up and try to sound official. Martinez leans forward conspirationally. In my experience, real federal agents don't need to announce themselves with a stack of papers and a bunch of threats. They show their credentials quietly, professionally. They don't create a scene in the middle of a traffic stop. And what happened when you asked to verify her identity through official channels? She became evasive. Started talking about classified clearances and need-to-know basis. Red flags everywhere. When someone won't let you verify their claims through proper channels, that tells you everything you need to know. The defense attorney nods gravely. Officer Martinez, based on your 15 years of experience, your extensive training, and your observations that evening, what is your professional assessment of the defendant's behavior? Martinez straightens up, putting on his most official voice. In my professional opinion, Doctor. Johnson engaged in impersonation of a federal officer, obstruction of justice, and resisting lawful arrest. She attempted to use fraudulent documents and false claims of authority to intimidate law enforcement officers in the performance of their duties. He pauses for effect, making sure every word sinks in. This wasn't someone confused or scared. This was someone who thought she could talk her way out of consequences by pretending to be something she's not. And when that didn't work, she got combative. That's when officer safety protocols kicked in, and we had no choice but to place her under arrest. The courtroom falls silent. Martinez has delivered his testimony with the confidence of someone who has never been successfully challenged. His version of events paints Dr. Johnson as a sophisticated con artist who nearly fooled two experienced officers. As he steps down from the witness stand, Martinez straightens his uniform one more time and gives Dr. Johnson a look that says, "Try to get out of this one." But Dr. Johnson just sits there, calm as still water, making notes in a leather portfolio. She hasn't said a word during the entire testimony. She hasn't objected or reacted or shown any sign of the agitation Martinez described. She just writes. And wait. Dr. Amara Johnson rises from her seat with the fluid precision of someone who has commanded rooms far more powerful than this one. No theatrics, no dramatic gestures. She simply stands, smooths her blazer once, and walks to the witness stand like she's done this 1,000 times before. The bailiff holds out the Bible. Dr. Johnson places her right hand on it without hesitation, her left hand raised. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." Her voice carries across the courtroom with quiet authority. Not loud, not aggressive, just absolutely certain. "Please state your name for the record." Dr. Amara Elena Johnson. She pauses just long enough for the title to register with the jury. Doctorate in International Security Studies from Georgetown. Master's in Criminal Justice from George Washington University. The defense attorney's eyebrows raise slightly. This wasn't in Martinez's version of events. Dr. Johnson's attorney, a sharp black woman named Sarah Carter, approaches the witness stand. Dr. Johnson, please tell the court what happened on the evening of March 15th. I was returning from Washington, D.C. after completing a classified briefing at federal headquarters. The meeting concluded at approximately 6:30 p.m., and I was driving home via Interstate 95 when I observed flashing lights in my rearview mirror at exactly 7:47 p.m. The precision catches everyone's attention. Not around 8 o'clock or sometime in the evening, exactly 7:47 p.m. I immediately activated my hazard lights and pulled into the designated emergency stopping area, coming to a complete stop within 43 seconds of the initial signal. Standard protocol for any traffic encounter. Sarah Carter nods. What happened next? Officer Martinez approached my vehicle with his hand positioned on his service weapon, which is unusual but not unprecedented for evening stops. I lowered my window completely and placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, as outlined in de-escalation procedures I've studied extensively. Dr. Johnson's testimony flows like a detailed report, each fact presented with clinical precision. No emotion, no accusations, just methodical documentation of events. Officer Martinez asked for license and registration. I informed him that I would be retrieving documents from my briefcase, and I moved slowly to avoid any misinterpretation of my actions. As I reached for my identification, I also retrieved my federal credentials, as required by protocol when federal personnel are detained during official travel. What was Officer Martinez's reaction to your credentials? He examined them for approximately 15 seconds, then handed them back and stated, quote, "These look real fancy, but anybody can buy fake badges online these days." He then instructed me to step out of the vehicle. The courtroom murmurs. This detail wasn't in Martinez's testimony. Did you comply with his instruction? Yes. I exited the vehicle with my hands visible and stated clearly, "Officer, I am a federal employee returning from official business. These credentials can be verified through the Department of Homeland Security duty officer, available 24 hours. I provided the direct verification number. Dr. Johnson reaches into her blazer and pulls out a small, official-looking card. This is the Federal Employee Contact Protocol card, issued to all personnel for exactly these situations. She holds it up briefly, then returns it to her pocket. The movement is smooth, practiced, like she's done it countless times in far more serious circumstances. What was Officer Martinez's response to your offer of verification? He stated, and I quote, "I don't have time for your games, lady. Save the act for someone who's impressed." He then instructed his partner, Officer Carter, to call for backup because, quote, "We've got a live one here who thinks she's FBI or something." Sarah Carter walks closer to the jury. Dr. Johnson, you mentioned protocols and procedures several times. Where does your knowledge of law enforcement protocols come from? I have spent the past 20 years developing, implementing, and overseeing federal law enforcement training protocols across multiple agencies. My work involves extensive collaboration with local, state, and federal law enforcement to ensure consistent application of constitutional standards during civilian encounters. She says this matter-of-factly, like mentioning she's spent 20 years teaching elementary school. No pride, no boasting, just professional background. In your professional experience, did Officers Martinez and Carter follow standard protocol during your detention? No. Multiple violations occurred within the first 5 minutes of contact. Failure to verify federal credentials when offered. Failure to utilize available communication channels for identity confirmation. Escalation of force posture without documented cause for officer safety concerns. Dr. Johnson pulls a manila folder from her briefcase and sets it on the witness stand ledge. She doesn't open it, just places it there like a chess piece being positioned. Dr. Johnson, you mentioned you were returning from a classified briefing. Can you tell us the general nature of that briefing? I am not at liberty to discuss specific details due to national security classifications. However, I can state that the briefing concerned emerging patterns in law enforcement accountability and constitutional compliance across federal jurisdiction areas. The irony hangs in the air like smoke. She was literally coming from a meeting about police accountability when this happened. During your interaction with Officers Martinez and Carter, did you at any point become combative or aggressive? No. I maintained professional demeanor throughout the encounter, even when Officer Martinez began making statements about my appearance and making assumptions about my background based on my race. What kind of statements? Dr. Johnson looks directly at Martinez for the first time. Her gaze is steady, almost clinical. Officer Martinez stated, quote, "Another one of these people trying to pull rank with fake papers." When I attempted to provide additional verification, he said, quote, "Save it for the judge, sweetheart. Maybe she'll be impressed by your little costume." The defense attorney objects to hearsay, but the damage is done. The jury has heard Martinez's dismissive tone described in Dr. Johnson's measured professional voice. Dr. Johnson, how long have you held federal security clearance? 18 years of continuous top-secret clearance, with periodic Special Access Program authorization for counterterrorism operations. She reaches into her briefcase again and pulls out what appears to be an official government badge, though she doesn't display it openly. Just hold it in her hand like a reminder. In your professional opinion, could this encounter have been resolved differently? Yes. Standard verification procedures exist specifically to prevent these misunderstandings. A single phone call to the federal duty officer would have confirmed my identity and credentials within 3 minutes. Instead, Officers Martinez and Carter chose to escalate the situation based on personal assumptions rather than professional protocol. Dr. Johnson closes her briefcase with a soft click. The protocols I've spent 2 decades developing exist to protect both law enforcement and citizens from exactly this type of encounter. When those protocols are ignored, everyone suffers. As she prepares to step down, she glances once more at that manila folder on the witness stand ledge. Something about the way she looks at it suggests there's much more inside than anyone realizes. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. No further questions at this time. But as Dr. Johnson returns to her seat, her attorney adds quietly, Your Honor, we reserve the right to recall Dr. Johnson for additional testimony once we present our evidence. The way she says evidence makes everyone in the courtroom suddenly very interested in what's coming next. The courtroom adjourns for the day, and Dr. Amara Johnson drives home through the same streets where she was humiliated just weeks ago. But these streets tell a different story than the one Officer Martinez painted in court. Her house sits in a quiet neighborhood where American flags flutter from several porches. Not the kind of place Martinez would expect a welfare queen to live. The 2-story colonial is modest but well-maintained, with a small garden where she grows vegetables and a driveway where her government-issued sedan sits next to a practical Honda Civic. Inside, the walls tell the real story of Dr. Amara Johnson. Framed photographs line the hallway leading to her home office. There she is, shaking hands with the last 3 presidents. Another photo shows her receiving a commendation from the Director of Homeland Security. A third captures her briefing a room full of serious-looking officials around a mahogany conference table. But the most telling photo sits on her desk. Dr. Johnson in tactical gear, standing with a team of federal agents outside a building with Joint Terrorism Task Force visible on a sign behind them. She's not posing for the camera. She's pointing at something off-frame, clearly in command. Her phone buzzes. Mom, how did it go today? The voice belongs to her daughter, Maya, a third-year law student at Howard University. About as expected, Doctor. Johnson says, settling into her office chair. Martinez performed exactly as I predicted he would. Performed? Honey, when you've spent 20 years studying human behavior under pressure, you learn to anticipate reactions. Martinez is a textbook. Authoritarian personality, needs to maintain dominance, can't admit error because it threatens his entire identity structure. Maya's voice tightens with worry. But Mom, what if the jury believes him? What if they think exactly what Martinez wants them to think, for now? Dr. Johnson opens her laptop and the Department of Homeland Security seal appears on the screen. But tomorrow, we present evidence. She pulls that manila folder from her briefcase and spreads its contents across her desk. Dashboard camera footage files, radio transcripts, GPS tracking data, personnel records, and something else. Something that will change everything. Maya, let me ask you something. In your constitutional law class, what did Professor Williams teach you about the exclusionary rule? Evidence obtained through illegal means can't be used in court. Why? Dr. Johnson clicks through files on her secure laptop. Because sometimes the system protects people who break it, but it doesn't protect them from themselves. On her screen, she opens a file labeled Officer D. Martinez, Personnel Review. 8 complaints over 5 years. Each one dismissed or buried. Each one involved citizens who looked exactly like her. Mrs. Williams, age 67, pulled over for suspicious behavior that turned out to be driving while black to her grandson's graduation. Mr. Thompson, age 34, detained for matching a suspect description that was mysteriously vague when investigators requested details. Miss Rodriguez, age 28, was arrested for disorderly conduct after asking why she was being stopped. All dismissed, all buried, all featuring the same officers. Mom? Are you still there? I'm here, baby. Just reviewing some files. Dr. Johnson's voice carries a weight Maya has heard before, usually when her mother was working cases that kept her up all night. Maya, what would you do if you discovered a pattern of constitutional violations that had been systematically covered up? I'd document everything and present it to the appropriate authorities. And if you were the appropriate authority? The silence stretches between them. Maya is brilliant, already interning with a federal judge, but she's never seen this side of her mother's work. Mom, what exactly do you do for Homeland Security? Dr. Johnson looks at the commendations on her wall. Director's Award for Excellence in Counterterrorism Operations, Presidential Citation for Distinguished Service, Certificate of Appreciation from the Attorney General's Office for Exceptional Contributions to Civil Rights Enforcement. I protect the Constitution, sweetheart. Sometimes from foreign threats, sometimes from domestic ones. She opens another file. This one contains dashboard camera footage from her own vehicle. Footage that Martinez doesn't know exists because he never bothered to look for it. Footage that captures every word, every gesture, every moment of contempt from 2 officers who thought they were dealing with someone powerless. Maya, I need to go. I have work to finish before tomorrow. Mom, be careful. These people have been getting away with this for years. They won't go down easily. Dr. Johnson smiles at a photo on her desk, her graduation from the FBI National Academy, where she finished first in her class and won the award for excellence in crisis management. Honey, I've taken down international terrorist networks. I've dismantled organized crime syndicates. I've prevented attacks on American soil that would have made 9/11 look like a warm-up. She closes the laptop and looks out her window at the neighborhood where Officer Martinez thinks people like her don't belong. 2 corrupt cops with badges and attitudes? That's not a threat. That's Tuesday. Tomorrow, everyone will learn who they've been dealing with. And tomorrow, Officer Martinez will discover that some people you shouldn't laugh at. Day 2 in the courtroom feels different. Dr. Johnson enters wearing the same composed expression, but something has shifted overnight. Officer Martinez still swaggers to his seat, but Officer Carter looks like he didn't sleep well. The defense attorney shuffles through papers with the nervous energy of someone who suspects the game is about to change. Sarah Carter, Dr. Johnson's attorney, rises with a tablet in her hand and an expression that suggests She's about to enjoy herself immensely. Your Honor, the defense would like to present video evidence from the traffic stop in question. The defense attorney bolts upright. Objection! We weren't notified of any video evidence. Your Honor, Sarah Carter responds calmly. This evidence was obtained from the defendant's personal vehicle dashboard camera, which is perfectly legal and admissible. We're providing it now under discovery rules. Judge Harrison adjusts his glasses. Proceed, counselor. A large screen descends from the ceiling. The courtroom falls silent as Sarah Carter connects her tablet. Officer Martinez shifts in his seat, but maintains his confident posture. After all, what could they possibly have on video? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what you're about to see is unedited footage from Dr. Johnson's dashboard camera, beginning at 7:45 p.m. on March 15th. The video begins. Dr. Johnson's vehicle is traveling in the right lane, clearly obeying traffic laws. The timestamp shows 7:47 p.m. when flashing lights appear behind her. She immediately signals, activates hazard lights, and pulls over within 43 seconds, exactly as she testified. So far, nothing controversial. Martinez relaxes slightly. But then the audio kicks in. As the police cruiser's doors slam shut, voices carry clearly to Dr. Johnson's dashboard microphone. Officer Martinez's voice cuts through the evening air. Check this out, Carter. Bet you $20 she starts crying about racial profiling before I even ask for her license. Officer Carter's voice responds, You're on. But I say she plays the important person card first. These people always think they're somebody special. The courtroom erupts in shocked murmurs. This conversation happened before either officer approached her vehicle, before they knew anything about her except what they could see through her rear window. Martinez's face drains of color, but Carter looks like he might be sick. The video continues. Martinez approaches Dr. Johnson's vehicle with his hand on his weapon, exactly as she described. Through the audio, they hear her calm voice. Good evening, officer. I'm reaching for my license and registration now. But what they also hear is Martinez muttering under his breath as he walks up, Federal agent, my ass, watch this performance. The jury is riveted. This is Officer Martinez commenting on Dr. Johnson's federal credentials before she had even shown them to him. On screen, Doctor. Johnson hands over her documents. Martinez examines them for exactly 15 seconds, as she testified. But the camera captures his facial expressions. He doesn't look confused or suspicious. He looks annoyed that the credentials appear genuine. These look real fancy. His voice comes through clearly. But anybody can buy fake badges online these days. But then the microphone picks up something he said to Carter when he walked back to discuss the situation. Damn it, these actually look legit. But no way this lady is federal. Look at her. Chen's voice responds. Maybe we should call it in for verification. Hell no. I'm not going to be the cop who got punked by some wannabe with good fake papers. Besides, look at this neighborhood. You think Homeland Security lives around here? The video continues rolling. Every gesture, Doctor. Johnson described is captured in perfect detail. Her calm compliance, her professional demeanor, her clear offers to provide verification through federal channels. And it captures something else. Martinez making exaggerated facial expressions to Carter, rolling his eyes, making crazy person gestures behind Dr. Johnson's back while she's trying to explain her federal credentials. But the most damaging moment comes when Dr. Johnson, still maintaining perfect composure, says, Officer, I understand your caution, but I'm offering to provide immediate verification through the Department of Homeland Security duty officer. The number is on the card I gave you. Martinez's response, captured in crystal clear audio. Lady, I don't care if you claim to work for the president himself. You're getting a ticket. And if you keep running your mouth, you're getting arrested too. Chen can be heard saying quietly, Martinez, maybe we should... Should what? Let her play us like idiots? No way. The video shows Martinez returning to Doctor. Johnson's window, his body language aggressive now. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "May I ask why, officer?" "Because I said so, and keep your hands where I can see them." As Dr. Johnson complies, the camera captures Martinez saying to Carter, "Watch this." Bet she starts with the race card now. But Dr. Johnson doesn't mention race. She continues trying to offer professional cooperation. "Officer, if you'll allow me to contact my supervisor, this situation can be resolved quickly and professionally." Martinez's response sends chills through the courtroom. "Your supervisor?" "Lady, your supervisor is probably running a corner store somewhere. Stop the act." The video continues for another 8 minutes. Every claim Martinez made in his testimony is systematically contradicted by his own actions and words. The professional demeanor he described becomes clear condescension and mockery. The reasonable officer conducting a routine stop becomes an antagonist determined to humiliate someone he's decided doesn't deserve respect. When Dr. Johnson mentions federal protocols, Martinez actually laughs. When she offers verification numbers, he waves them away dismissively. When she maintains calm professionalism throughout the encounter, he becomes increasingly aggressive, as if her composure is somehow an insult to his authority. The final moments of the video show Martinez handcuffing Dr. Johnson while saying to Carter, "Another one bites the dust." These people think if they dress nice and talk smart, they can intimidate us. Not happening. Sarah Carter pauses the video. The courtroom sits in stunned silence. Officer Martinez looks like he wants to disappear into his chair. Officer Carter is staring at his hands, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Sarah Carter says quietly, "this video was recorded by Dr. Johnson's personal dashboard camera. Every word you heard came from Officers Martinez and Carter's own mouths. Every action you witnessed was their own behavior." She walks closer to the jury box. Notice that Dr. Johnson never became combative, never raised her voice, never mentioned race or discrimination. She remained professional throughout an encounter where she was being mocked, dismissed, and ultimately arrested for the crime of being someone these officers decided couldn't possibly be who she said she was. The defense attorney objects weakly to editorial commentary, but the damage is absolute. The video has revealed not just what happened, but why it happened. Not a routine traffic stop gone wrong, but a deliberate exercise in humiliation based entirely on assumptions about who Dr. Johnson was supposed to be. Sarah Carter returns to her table and picks up another folder. "Your Honor, this video represents just the beginning of our evidence. We have additional materials that will demonstrate this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of behavior that these officers believed would never see the light of day." As the video screen retracts, every eye in the courtroom remains fixed on Officers Martinez and Carter. The confident cops who entered the courtroom yesterday now look like what they really are: bullies who got caught on camera. The defense attorney stands up on shaking legs, sweat beading on his forehead. "Your Honor, we object to the authenticity of the defendant's alleged federal credentials. Anyone can create official-looking documents these days. We demand proper verification of her claimed identity before this case proceeds further." It's a desperate move, but it's all he has left. Officer Martinez nods vigorously from his seat, grasping at this final straw. Maybe the credentials are fake after all. Maybe this is all an elaborate con game. Judge Harrison looks down at Sarah Carter. "Counselor, the defense raises a legitimate concern about verification. Can you provide independent confirmation of your client's federal employment?" Sarah Carter stands slowly, and for the first time since this trial began, she's smiling. Not a polite courtroom smile, but the satisfied grin of someone who's been waiting for exactly this moment. "Your Honor, I'd be happy to provide verification. In fact, I have a witness here today who can speak to Dr. Johnson's credentials and position within the federal government." She walks to the courtroom doors and opens them. I call Deputy Director James Mitchell of the Department of Homeland Security. A tall man in an impeccably tailored black suit enters the courtroom. His presence immediately commands attention, the kind of person who clearly holds serious authority. Secret Service agents take positions near the doors. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly from small-town courthouse drama to federal investigation. Officer Martinez's face goes completely white. Officer Carter looks like he might faint. Deputy Director Mitchell approaches the witness stand with the bearing of someone accustomed to briefing presidents and testifying before Congress. He places his hand on the Bible with the same matter-of-fact confidence that Dr. Johnson displayed. Please state your name and position for the record. Deputy Director James Mitchell, United States Department of Homeland Security. I oversee all domestic counterterrorism operations and federal law enforcement coordination across 34 states, including this jurisdiction. The words hit the courtroom like a physical force. This isn't just federal verification, this is the federal verification. A man whose decisions affect national security policy has taken time from his schedule to appear in this small courthouse. Sarah Carter approaches the witness stand. Deputy Director Mitchell, do you know the defendant, Doctor? Amara Johnson? Yes, I do. Dr. Johnson reports directly to me as Assistant Director of Federal Law Enforcement Standards and Training. She has held this position for the past 8 years. The jury sits in stunned silence. Assistant Director. Not some mid-level federal employee, but someone who outranks police chiefs, sheriff's departments, and most federal agents they've ever heard of. Can you describe, Dr. Johnson's responsibilities in this role? Dr. Johnson oversees the development and implementation of constitutional compliance training for all federal law enforcement agencies, as well as coordination with state and local departments. She literally writes the procedures that govern how law enforcement officers are supposed to conduct interactions with citizens. Deputy Director Mitchell turns slightly toward the jury. To put this in perspective, Doctor, Johnson's work affects the training protocols for over 800,000 law enforcement officers across the United States. When officers attend federal training seminars on constitutional policing, they're learning curricula that Dr. Johnson developed. Officer Martinez slides lower in his chair. The woman he arrested for impersonating a federal officer actually outranks everyone in his entire police department. Deputy Director Mitchell, was Dr. Johnson traveling on official business on the evening of March 15th? Yes. She was returning from a classified briefing at our Washington headquarters regarding emerging patterns in law enforcement accountability. Specifically, we're investigating systematic constitutional violations in certain jurisdictions. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Dr. Johnson was literally coming from a meeting about police misconduct when she was subjected to police misconduct. What is Dr. Johnson's security clearance level? Top secret / SCI with special access program authorization. She's been cleared at this level for 18 consecutive years without incident. Sarah Carter walks toward Officer Martinez. Deputy Director Mitchell, in your professional opinion, how should local officers respond when they encounter federal personnel during routine stops? Standard protocol requires immediate verification through federal duty officer channels. Any sworn law enforcement officer in this country has access to these verification systems 24 hours a day. There is absolutely no excuse for failing to confirm federal credentials when they're presented. He pauses, letting his words sink in. Furthermore, federal personnel are required to carry verification contact information precisely to prevent these misunderstandings. What happens when local officers fail to follow these protocols? Deputy Director Mitchell's voice takes on a harder edge. When local officers detain federal personnel without cause, especially when proper verification is offered and refused, it becomes a federal matter. We don't take kindly to our people being arrested for doing their jobs. The courtroom falls silent. The power dynamic that Officer Martinez thought he controlled has just been completely obliterated. Sarah Carter returns to her table and picks up an official document with federal seals. Your Honor, I'm submitting Deputy Director Mitchell's sworn affidavit confirming Dr. Johnson's identity, position, and the official nature of her travel on March 15th. She turns toward Officer Martinez, whose confident smirk from yesterday has been replaced by the expression of a man who's just realized he's in more trouble than he ever imagined. Still laughing, Officer Martinez? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Yesterday, Martinez was the authority figure dealing with another troublemaker. Today, he's a small-town cop who arrested someone who could end his career with a single phone call, and everyone in the courtroom knows it. Sarah Carter doesn't waste time savoring the moment. While Officer Martinez is still processing the fact that he arrested a federal official who outranks his entire chain of command, she's already reaching for another file folder. This one is thicker than the others, packed with documents that spell out a much bigger problem. Your Honor, now that we've established Dr. Johnson's legitimate federal authority, I'd like to present evidence that this incident was not an isolated case of poor judgment, but part of a deliberate pattern of constitutional violations. She opens the folder and pulls out a stack of official reports. I call Officer Martinez back to the witness stand for cross-examination. Martinez looks like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world, but he has no choice. He walks to the witness stand like a man heading to his own execution. Officer Martinez, how many complaints have been filed against you in the past 5 years? The defense attorney objects immediately. Relevance, Your Honor. Your Honor, this goes directly to Officer Martinez's credibility and pattern of behavior when encountering citizens he perceives as difficult, Sarah Carter responds. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Officer Martinez. Martinez shifts uncomfortably. I'm not sure of the exact number. Sarah Carter holds up a thick file. According to your personnel records, which we subpoenaed yesterday, 8 formal complaints have been filed against you since 2019. 8 complaints, Officer Martinez, all involving citizens of color, all dismissed by your department without investigation. She walks closer to the witness stand. Let me refresh your memory. Mrs. Dorothy Williams, age 67, pulled over for suspicious behavior that turned out to be driving to her grandson's graduation. You told her to stay in her lane both literally and figuratively. Remember that one? Martinez's jaw tightens. Every stop I make is justified. Mr. Carlos Thompson, age 34, detained for matching a suspect description. When Internal Affairs asked for the description you were matching him to, you couldn't produce one, but you did tell him that his kind always causes trouble in this neighborhood. Officer Carter is staring at his hands, looking more uncomfortable with each revelation. Miss Sandra Rodriguez, age 28, was arrested for disorderly conduct after asking why she was being stopped. The charges were dropped when video evidence showed she never raised her voice or made any threatening gestures. But you did call her another entitled princess who thinks she's special. Sarah Carter turns to face the jury. Notice a pattern here? Citizens of color who question Officer Martinez's authority. Citizens who don't immediately defer to his badge. Citizens who, in his own words, think they're someone special. She returns to Martinez, who's gripping the witness stand rail so tightly his knuckles are white. Officer Martinez, in your 15 years of service, how many white citizens have you arrested for disorderly conduct during traffic stops? I don't keep track of statistics like that. Well, I do. Sarah Carter consults her file. 0. In 15 years, you have never arrested a white citizen for disorderly conduct during a routine traffic stop. But you've arrested 11 citizens of color for the same offense. The courtroom buzzes with shocked murmurs. Even the judge raises his eyebrows at this statistic. Your Honor, I'd like to call Officer Carter to the stand as well. Officer Carter looks like he wants to disappear, but he trudges to the witness stand after Martinez steps down. His hands shake as he's sworn in. Officer Carter, you've been Officer Martinez's partner for 3 years. During that time, have you ever witnessed him make racially disparaging comments about citizens? Chen's voice is barely audible. We... Sometimes officers get frustrated. That's not what I asked. Have you witnessed Officer Martinez make racially disparaging comments? Yes or no? Long pause. Carter looks at Martinez, then at the floor. Yes. Have you ever reported these comments to your supervisors? Another long pause. No. Why not? Because Martinez said it was just cop talk, that everyone does. That would make me a snitch. Sarah Carter nods grimly. Officer Carter, when you heard the dashboard camera audio yesterday, were you surprised by Officer Martinez's comments about Dr. Johnson? Chen's voice cracks slightly. No, that's how he talks about most of the people we stop in certain neighborhoods. The admission hangs in the air like poison gas. Officer Carter has just confirmed that the dashboard camera didn't capture an aberration. It captured standard operating procedure. Officer Carter, do you understand that by remaining silent about these constitutional violations, you became complicit in them? Chen nods miserably. He knows his career is over too. Sarah Carter returns to her table and picks up one final document. Your Honor, I'm submitting evidence that this police department has a systematic pattern of dismissing complaints against Officer Martinez without investigation. 8 complaints in 5 years, all involving citizens of color, all buried without proper review. She turns to face the entire courtroom. This isn't about one bad traffic stop. This is about 2 officers who believed they could humiliate, arrest, and intimidate citizens with impunity because the system always protected them before. Her voice rises with righteous anger. They were wrong. Today, the system works. Today, there are consequences. Today, the pattern ends. The courtroom erupts in applause before the judge can call for order. But the applause isn't what matters. What matters is the look of absolute defeat on Officer Martinez's face as he realizes that 20 years of getting away with this behavior has finally caught up with him. The defense attorney rises for his closing argument with the desperate energy of a man trying to stop a freight train with his bare hands. His expensive suit can't hide the fact that his case has been completely demolished by evidence he never saw coming. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he begins, his voice lacking the confidence it carried just days ago. We must remember that police officers make split-second decisions in dangerous situations. Officer Martinez couldn't have known. Objection, Sarah Carter interrupts. The defense is arguing facts not in evidence. What dangerous situation? Dr. Johnson was sitting in her car with her hands visible. Sustained. The defense attorney tries again. What I mean is, in today's climate, officers must be cautious. Sometimes that caution can be misinterpreted as, Your Honor, Judge Harrison says sternly, counsel will stick to the facts presented in this case. The defense attorney stumbles through 15 minutes of increasingly weak arguments. He tries to paint Martinez as a dedicated public servant who made an honest mistake. He attempts to downplay the dashboard camera audio as heat-of-the-moment comments. He even suggests that Dr. Johnson should have been more understanding of the officer's position. But every word rings hollow in a courtroom that has heard Martinez's own voice mocking a federal official, seen Carter's admission of complicity, and witnessed the systematic pattern of abuse that both officers thought would never see the light of day. When the defense attorney finally sits down, he looks like a man who knows he's just delivered his own career's obituary. Sarah Carter stands for her closing argument, and the energy in the room shifts completely. This is no longer a desperate defense of the indefensible. This is a reckoning. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, 3 days ago, Officer Martinez walked into this courtroom confident that his badge would protect him from the consequences of his actions. He believed that his word would be taken over Dr. Johnson's simply because he wore a uniform and she was a black woman he'd decided didn't belong in his world. She walks slowly in front of the jury box, making eye contact with each juror. But the truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? And the truth in this case is captured in Officer Martinez's own words, recorded by technology he didn't know existed, spoken with the casual cruelty of someone who believed he would never be held accountable. Sarah Carter turns toward Martinez, who can't meet her gaze. Another welfare queen. These people always think they're somebody special. Your supervisor is probably running a corner store somewhere. These weren't heat-of-the-moment comments. These were the practiced words of someone who has been degrading citizens for years. She returns to the jury. But here's what Officer Martinez didn't know. Dr. Johnson wasn't just somebody special. She was somebody who had dedicated her entire career to preventing exactly this kind of constitutional violation. She was returning from a meeting about police accountability when she became a victim of police misconduct. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so tragic. The courtroom is dead silent. Every word carries the weight of absolute truth. The defense wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding. But misunderstandings don't involve 8 previous complaints. Misunderstandings don't include mocking federal credentials before they're even examined. Misunderstandings don't result in officers high-fiving each other after arresting someone they've decided is beneath them. Sarah Carter's voice rises with controlled passion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate abuse of power by officers who believed the system would protect them no matter what they did. She walks to her table and picks up Dr. Johnson's federal credentials, holding them up for the jury to see. Dr. Amara Johnson has spent 20 years protecting this country from threats, foreign and domestic. She has briefed presidents. She has prevented terrorist attacks. She has literally written the book on constitutional policing. And on March 15th, she was arrested by officers who couldn't be bothered to make a single phone call to verify her identity because they had already decided she was nobody important. The jury is riveted. Several jurors are visibly angry at what they've witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, your verdict today sends a message. If you find these officers not guilty, you're telling every Dr. Johnson in America that badges trump constitutional rights. You're saying that officers can humiliate, arrest, and abuse citizens as long as they wear a uniform. Sarah Carter pauses, letting the weight of responsibility settle on the jury. But if you find them guilty, you're saying that no one is above the law, not even those sworn to enforce it. You're saying that the Constitution applies to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin or the neighborhood they live in. She returns to her seat. The evidence is overwhelming. The truth is undeniable. Justice is in your hands. The jury deliberates for exactly 47 minutes. When they return, the foreman stands with the verdict form in his trembling hands. On the charge of deprivation of civil rights under color of law against Officer Daniel Martinez, we find the defendant guilty. Officer Martinez's head drops into his hands. On the charge of conspiracy to violate civil rights against Officer Robert Carter, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupts. But Judge Harrison isn't finished. Officer Martinez, you are hereby sentenced to 2 years in federal prison, immediate termination from law enforcement, and prohibition from ever serving in law enforcement again. You will also pay restitution to Dr. Johnson for damages. Martinez looks up with tears in his eyes, but Judge Harrison continues. Officer Carter, for your cooperation and demonstrated remorse, you are sentenced to 1 year of community service, immediate termination, and 5 years probation. Judge Harrison turns his attention to Dr. Johnson, who has maintained her composure throughout the entire trial. Dr. Johnson, this court apologizes for the treatment you received from officers sworn to protect and serve. Your dignity throughout this ordeal reflects the highest standards of public service. As the gavel falls, Doctor. Johnson finally allows herself a small smile. Justice, delayed by weeks of legal proceedings, has finally been served. And Officer Martinez, who 3 days ago was laughing at a woman he thought was powerless, is now a convicted felon who will never wear a badge again. 6 months later, the mall security uniform doesn't fit Daniel Martinez the way his police uniform used to. The polyester is cheap, the badge is plastic, and the respect he once commanded has evaporated completely. He walks his rounds past teenagers who ignore him and shoppers who don't even notice he exists. The man who once arrested a federal official for impersonating someone important now asks people not to loiter near the food court. Robert Carter wears an orange vest as he picks up trash along Highway 95. Community service, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. He thinks about Dr. Johnson every time a government car drives past. He thinks about the phone call he could have made, the verification that would have taken 3 minutes, the career he threw away because he was too afraid to stand up to his partner. But their story is just the beginning. Dr. Amara Johnson stands at a podium in the Hart Senate office building, addressing the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. The same calm voice that remained steady under Martinez's mockery now carries across C-SPAN cameras to millions of Americans. Senators, the case in question represents a systematic failure of accountability that extends far beyond 2 officers in one jurisdiction. When federal personnel can be arrested for presenting legitimate credentials, when verification protocols are ignored, when complaints are buried without investigation, we have a constitutional crisis. The senators listen intently as she presents her recommendations. Body cameras for all traffic stops, mandatory verification procedures for federal credentials, independent oversight of complaint investigations, zero tolerance for officers with patterns of constitutional violations. The Johnson Protocol, as it comes to be known, is implemented in police departments across the country within 8 months. Training academies now use dashcam footage from her arrest as an example of how not to conduct law enforcement interactions. Maya Johnson graduated from Howard Law School that spring, finishing second in her class. During her graduation speech as student body president, she talks about watching her mother's dignity under fire, about the power of remaining calm when others try to break you, about the importance of fighting for justice even when the system seems stacked against you. My mother taught me that dignity isn't about how others treat you, Maya tells the assembled graduates. It's about how you treat yourself and how you treat others, especially when no one is watching. Dr. Johnson sits in the audience, the same composed expression she wore in that courtroom, but her eyes shine with pride. The local police department undergoes federal oversight for 2 years. 8 officers are terminated for misconduct after the FBI investigation reveals a culture of corruption that went far beyond Martinez and Carter. The new police chief, a black woman with a doctorate in criminal justice, implements community policing programs that actually serve the neighborhood's officers once terrorized. But the most important change happens in courtrooms across America, where defense attorneys can no longer assume that a badge automatically trumps a citizen's word, where prosecutors know that constitutional violations will be prosecuted regardless of who commits them, where judges understand that justice delayed is justice denied, but justice delivered sends a message that echoes far beyond any single case. Dr. Johnson returns to her work at Homeland Security, but now she carries something additional. Proof that the system can work when citizens refuse to stay silent, when evidence speaks louder than assumptions, and when dignity defeats prejudice. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Black Tales Stories for more incredible tales of justice prevailing against all odds. Share this with someone who needs to see that truth always finds a way to surface, and that standing up for what's right is never wasted effort. What would you have done in Dr. Johnson's position? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to ring that notification bell because next week, we're bringing you another unbelievable story of an underestimated person who shocked everyone when they revealed who they really were. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay calm and let the truth speak for itself.